Hello, I recently started a new sketchbook and I've finally gone around to doing the first page officially, despite already being like a quarter of the way already through the sketchbook. The sketchbook is from Trickywagon and is honestly super pretty. I love it. The paper is nice quality and I'm assuming it might be printed via Vograce because I know Vograce is a really popular service artists use to get products for their art shop. The sketchbook is from Trickywagon and is super pretty. It's really nice quality, the papers feel really nice, and also in the back of the sketchbook it has a little pocket, which I personally love because I always do little doodles and then shove them in the back to stick them later. So that's a very nice feature that I really like. It also has a band to keep it closed as well as a little bookmark thing. And of course the cover was actually pretty interesting. The cover came as normal and then there was a sticker that you put on top of the cover. And you had to line it up. It was kind of fun. And it looks pretty neat. I like it. And I just really like Trickywagon's art style and her characters and stuff. So I think the sketchbook's really good. I don't think you can get this exact version on her website anymore. Maybe you can. I'm not quite sure, but I will leave a link to her shop in the description below if you want to get one for sketchbook. She has a couple different designs. But anyways, this is my second sketchbook. You can view the tour of my first sketchbook as well. I just uploaded it. And in this sketchbook, the first two pages were kind of oddly connected. Like, you know, sometimes when you buy a sketchbook, the first two pages kind of like are glued together in a weird way. So they're a bit awkward to draw on. That's what happened in this sketchbook. So I didn't really plan on doing any like major drawings on these pages since I kind of view them as throwaway pages. So instead, I took one of these pages and decided to use it to draw a bunch of thumbnails for what the cover was going to be, or what the first page was going to be. After binge watching a bunch of sketchbook videos and scrolling through Pinterest, I came up with a couple ideas. One of them was a crane game idea where the sketchbook was getting picked out of the crane and maybe some sort of OC was watching from behind the glass. Another two ideas were magical themed ones that I was going to use my OC Wisp to do, which if you're interested about him, I have a video about him as well. As well as one based on a Splatoon character pose of them shooting a gun. And I thought that pose looked pretty neat. I almost went with it, but decided not to in the end. The last two designs I had tried was based on a piece of art I found on Pinterest that kind of looks like they're climbing out of the page, as well as just a basic one of a character just standing there and like greeting you with like a text box. Part of me actually liked that one, but I thought it was kind of basic, so I kind of wanted to go for something a bit more and try to push myself with the cover in terms of like perspective and stuff and anatomy, since I'm really trying to work on that currently. It came down to three ideas I liked, so I used some extra space at the bottom of the sketchbook to do some more detailed thumbnails and see what I was thinking. My two favorite were the Splatoon one and the magical one. I thought about it for a while, but decided the magical one just had a really cool composition to it and nice perspective and everything, so I ended up going with that one. But I do think I'll reuse the Splatoon pose, or honestly, I think I'll reuse a lot of these different thumbnail ideas just elsewhere in the sketchbook, maybe for like the final page or the halfway point, or just for a normal sketchbook spread, because I do like basically all the ideas I'd come up with. Since I went with the magical pose, I decided to use my OC Wisp as the character to start off the sketchbook, especially since I really want to work more on my future webcomic this year, so I thought it'd be a really good fit and nice practice. I was most nervous about the hand since it was a pretty hard perspective, but I ended up struggling with the body way more than I thought I would. Drawing the body angled forward in a way that the clothes make sense was kind of hard. It felt a bit off, especially once I got to connecting the arms. I feel like that's still a pretty big problem for me. I find making arms look right is really hard for some reason. Like, I still don't fully understand it. I understand the forearm and the upper part of the arm. It's like the elbow where I get a little bit confused, like the actual elbow that connects the two. So I think I need to do like just elbow studies. But yeah, it was pretty hard, and the face was a bit difficult. It wasn't too bad. I just drew the features too low the first time, so I erased them and drew them higher, and then it was fine. I've been really enjoying adding these cute little emoticon things to simple drawings, so I added some to this drawing as well. And that being said, I did do the hands off camera just because I knew I had to really lock in if I wanted them to look good. I struggled a lot with them as the perspective was really weird and they were in spots that were inconvenient to keep re-erasing and redrawing. So I ended up taking an easy way out and taking photos of my hands for reference, uploading them to Procreate, breaking them down into shapes, and then building the structure on top of that, and then using my iPad as a light box to trace the final product onto an index card, which I then cut out the hands from and glue them into the final piece. And honestly, I feel like it kind of looks pretty cool because both of his hands kind of stick out like that. I think it looks pretty neat. I think it worked pretty well, surprisingly well. When it comes to line art, I feel like I'm at a really weird stage with my line art where like it's fine, but I kind of want it to look messier, which I feel like is a bit weird of an opinion to have because I feel like most people want to make their line art cleaner and look nicer, but personally, I really like messy art styles and messy line work. I feel like it just adds a lot of life. I've seen like a lot of videos about line art and as you get better at them and make more stable lines and stuff, you can still like keep the life in the pose. But I don't know. I just feel like even when I look at professionals, I feel like the sketches always just by default have like some more life to them. So I kind of want to try to keep my line art more messy. This is something where digitally I've kind of gotten a little bit better at. My sketch ends up often just being my line art, my line art. But when it comes to traditionally, I feel like I don't really have a system for traditional line art yet, just because it's been so long since I really did a lot of traditional work. So now that I'm trying to focus more on my sketchbook again and do more traditional line art, I definitely want to try to push myself to work on line art. So far, I haven't done like any of that. It's all been sketches. But so I do want to use this as a chance to kind of like test out different line art methods. Usually in the past when I did line art, I would use like different size fine liners. I think I switched between like 3 different sizes. But lately I've been experimenting with the Tombow brush pen to get different sizes just based on how hard I press, just since it makes it easier than having to switch around a bunch of different pens. And I feel like it could make it more flowy in a sense, like if that makes any sense. But yeah, I think it came out pretty good. I did, there are a couple of tips I have about line art in case any of you find it helpful. One tip is to use different thicknesses, as I mentioned before. That's something that I think like a lot of people don't realize to do at the very beginning. But I did take a course by ohuhu the artist on Colosso recently, in which they mentioned how they use the thickest line art as an outline around the character, and then they get thinner the more detailed they get inside the character, which I thought was pretty interesting. I think I've seen that before. People doing thicker line arts around their characters. So I think that's something I want to adopt in my own art style as well. I also darkened some corners and edges, kind of like where shadows would be, with just thicker line art. I feel like it adds an extra sense of depth, and you don't even need to do this like a lot. You can just use in a small handful of places, and it really makes a big difference. In terms of the ohuhu the artist course on Colosso, I actually plan on having a review for that course up. So if you've ever been interested about any of the Colosso courses and if they're worth the money, so far I will just tell you right off the bat, all the courses I've taken were 100% worth the money. Also, those courses go on sale all the time, so just wait for a sale. But yeah, if that sounds interesting, then make sure to subscribe because I will have a review about that course up in a couple of weeks. Okay, when it came to actually finally coloring the final piece, that was difficult. I didn't know if I wanted to do alcohol markers or watercolor. I decided to go with alcohol markers. I think in the end, it came out okay. Definitely like during the process, I was like, ooh, like I wasn't really liking the way it was coming out. But I think eventually, once everything was put together, it wasn't that bad. One of my main problems with alcohol markers is that like I like to use really muted colors, but I don't know where to get really muted colors with alcohol markers. I don't know too much about alcohol markers. I know you can mix colors and use certain colors to kind of help mute down other colors. But I just have the ohuhu set. I technically also have the RT's the cool blues and earthy tones. No, skin tones. They're skin tones and they're like blue, gray set, whatever. But I didn't have them with me. So I only had access to my ohuhu markers and like some random markers that I tossed in there before. But I was able to get the red to be darker, which is good because that red marker that I was using is just really bright on its own. But if you mix it with green, since green is a complementary color, it does mute it. I did try to do that for some other things. The shirt took a pretty long time to find some sort of muted mix that would work. But thankfully, in the end, I did figure it out. I just placed orange first, and then I used a specific shade of the brown in the ohuhu kit, and I just put it over it. And that made it a lot more muted. It's not perfect to what the shirt color technically is, but it's actually pretty close. The hands also ended up blending in pretty well by the time I was done. It did turn out a little bit darker than the skin tone turned out a bit darker than it does on the normal sketchbook paper. But like honestly, once everything was done and done, I think it came out fine. I debated whether or not to do any form of shading for this at all. I did decide to do it at the very end. I think I did it off camera because it felt like a little flat without any form of shading. So I did add some very basic shading at the end. And like I said, I think it came out pretty good. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if I had done watercolor. Maybe it would have turned out interesting in a different way. But I also added in some flames with posca markers. And I think that really pulled it all together for me. It went from being like, meh, okay, to being like, you know what? Okay, I'm liking this. The posca markers were definitely surprisingly hard, more just because of how I had to layer them. Number one, these posca markers are super old. So the opacity probably isn't great. I think partially because of how old they are and stuff. I guess maybe the paint isn't as good as it was when I first bought them. But also, I can only go over a spot so many times before the paper really starts tearing up or peeling up. So that was also something I kind of had to consider. The orange was definitely probably one of the harder ones, especially when I was going over his scarf has such a big area and stuff that it was kind of difficult. So my original idea was to make it full opacity, but then I didn't get the full opacity. You can see through it a little bit, but honestly, I think that worked out better since in reality, you probably would be able to see through the fire in real life a little bit. So I think it still turned out pretty good. I did also use some extra tape to tape down the bottom hand more since it was kind of sticking up a lot. If you're wondering how well this paper handled the marker, on the back of it, it actually didn't bleed through onto the next page, only the back of this page, which happens like all the time. Markers always bleed through, but I was surprised that it didn't bleed onto the page underneath that. So that was really surprising. So I would say that this seems to handle marker okay. I will say that I don't really layer my markers too intensely. I think the most amount of layers in one spot is probably like 3 or 4 layers, I think. But yeah, overall, like, it was fine. I think if you did more marker drawings or whatever, like, this would be a fine sketchbook to handle marker as well. I haven't tried watercolor in it yet, but when I bought the sketchbook, they did show off different mediums on the sketchbook. So I'm pretty sure that, like, it'll be fine for watercolor as well. But after I finished the character and coloring the character, I need to figure out what I was going to do with the left page. I wasn't 100% sure. I hadn't really thought it through, so I did some thinking. I added in a sticker called Waiting for the Weekend. I have lots of stickers, but I feel like all of them popped out too much compared to like the very, like red, warm theme going on from the drawing. So that happened to be one of the few stickers that was more like brownish, it kind of matched the color scheme a little bit. I said Waiting for the Weekend. I just thought it looked good there because there's also some tape here because in the corner of the sketchbook, the sticker you put on the front, I noticed in the corner, it was like kind of like peeled up slightly. So I just used some tape to tape it down. So I didn't want to put the start all the way up there, but I didn't want to leave that spot blank. So the sticker worked well. I wrote start and finish. I just said July 1st because I do not know exactly when I started the sketchbook, like in reality, because technically some pages have already been filled up. It's taken me a while to get to this. But so right now it's July 13th, but yeah, I just put July 1st, because I was like, that's fine. It was probably like somewhere around there, I think. Then I put my goals on just a little sticky note and I ripped it up since I didn't need like the entire sticky note. And I think it came out pretty nice. Drew some little extra doodles to make it kind of stick out a little bit. Then I had a Doom sticker here that I put like ages ago. So I was wondering what to fill up the empty space with because I was like, I need something here. So I went through the scrap stuff that I had in the back of my sketchbook just to see what was left. And I saw that I had a drawing with just some eyes that I used like a brownish reddish colored pencil to draw. So those came out pretty good. Then I have this specific spot in my sketchbook where I was trying to come up with thumbnails for the design. And I had multiple. I cut them all out. Because they were done on a separate sheet of paper. So I cut them out, I stuck them in the back. I thought I would stick them somewhere in my sketchbook, and thankfully, they came handy here. So I have like 6 or 7 of them. So I took 3, and I stuck them on the side here, and I thought it worked well because the thumbnails like have to do with the story that he's in, so it honestly works out pretty well. But yeah, honestly, I'm like super proud with how the front page came out. I think it came out looking pretty good. I was really skeptical for a while, but it did come out looking pretty good. I did use the black posca marker to write sketchbook number 2 on the front because since I'd always imagined that the sketchbook would be in between his hands, I think it came out pretty good. I did think about using silver or brown. I thought the brown would blend in too much with his outfit since all of his outfit is just brown. And then the silver, I feel like would be kind of hard to read. At least in the test doodles I did in my old sketchbook, it was kind of hard to read. So I just ended up leaving it as black. I did end up using the white Posca marker to kind of add an outline to the text, which I was very iffy about doing, but I thought just the black kind of, I don't know, I felt like it kind of like melded into the background too much. So that's why I ended up adding the white outline. Anyways, I think it came out pretty good. This is my OC from my future webcomic, like I mentioned before, and he is a magical user, so I just thought, again, that this suited him perfectly. For my goals, I'm mainly focused on anatomy and perspective right now, just because I feel like that's going to take a lot of work. I'd also like to do more like line art coloring, even like finished illustrations. We'll see if I really do that since I might really just focus on a lot of sketches with anatomy and perspective, but I am trying to do more like kind of like finished pieces. I want to mess with alcohol markers and watercolor more and colored pencils and gouache. Like I see artists that mix all of these mediums together into one, and I really want to like mess with that and see if I can find like a rhythm where I really like that. So that's something I want to try doing in the sketchbook, but my primary goals are the anatomy, getting better at anatomy and perspective, because I've been putting them off for so long, especially perspective, and I feel like I really just gotta lock in and get better at it at this point. But yeah, you can view my previous sketchbook tour. I released it at the same time as this. I also have videos about K-pop Demon Hunters. If you are as obsessed with the music and the movie as I was, I have a video for Your Idol and for Soda Pop. And I also have a video going over my OC Wisp and more about him and his story. So if that sounds of a magical fantasy webcomic story with that character, if you like the design of the character and it looks interesting and stuff, then make sure to go check it out. And yeah, I plan on posting 2 videos a week, ideally on Monday and Thursday. So subscribe if you'd like to see more and comment what you'd like to see next. I plan to make sketchbook videos with the occasional maybe like digital art video for something. But yeah, okay, bye-bye.